Hi! In this video on the series on Gukesh, we will take a look at the rapid game that he played at the 2019 World Rapid Championship. Now, the curious thing about this World Rapid Championship is that back in that time, Gukesh had the rapid rating of 1779. Whereas his classical rating was already at a very respectable 2547. And I still remember how people were complaining that something was broken in the rating system when a player with a classical rating of 2547, which means a very strong grandmaster, would have a rapid rating of 1779. Understandably, people did not want to play Gukesh with that rating because they knew that he was a very strong grandmaster by then. By the way, aged 13, and there were a lot of complaints and discussions at the time about the rating system and the problems this discrepancy created. A little bit about the event. Gukesh did not have a spectacular event. In fact, in the middle of the event, between rounds 3 and 7, he had a 1 draw and 4 losses. But then he kind of recovered, and in the last 7 rounds he scored 5.5 points and finished the tournament with the rating performance which more or less was about the same as his classical rating. The performance was 25.52, and as I mentioned, his classical rating was 25.47. At the end, he finished shared 50th place. Together with 16 other participants out of 204. So it was still a good showing, even though nothing spectacular. Now, the reason I'm showing you this game is twofold. First, because it was played against Gajewski, who currently is Gukesh's main second. They have been working for quite some time now, they have a very good understanding, and Gajewski had a very good experience before working with Gukesh because he was Vishy Anand's main second for many years. So Gajewski certainly is passing on to the experience of working with Anand at the highest level. But at that time, he was not Gukesh's second, and they were simply competitors at the chessboard. Now, the second reason I'm showing you this game is that at least to my knowledge, this is by far the wildest game that Gukesh has ever played. So now we will take a look at the game, and I will let you decide for yourself if I am right on this account. So the game starts with knight f3. Gukesh very often opened the game with knight f3 and then played some calmer systems with e3, b3, g3 in his younger years, even though by this stage he started to widen his repertoire. And as we shall see, he chose a very aggressive line against Black's very solid Queen's Gambit decline setup. So d5, e3, knight f6, c4, e6, knight c3, bishop d6. This is an alternative to the development of the bishop to e7. b3, short castle, bishop b2, rook e8, all well-known theory. And in this position, probably objectively, the best way for white is to go knight b5, going after that bishop on d6. And after bishop f8 to go something like bishop e5, targeting the pawn on c7, or to take on f6 and force g takes f6. If black wants to avoid this, black normally goes bishop e7, but then again bishop e5 attacks the pawn on c7 and causes some discomfort, even though this is well-known theory. But Gukesh goes queen c2, and after c5, now he plays a very risky move, and that is the move g4. Objectively, the move is not very good, and in the beginning, Gajewski reacts very well. The best move for white is the move knight b5 again. And it can lead to some curious, I would say, repetition after bishop f8, bishop e5. So still threatening to land on c7, knight c6, attacking the bishop on e5, bishop c7, queen d7, knight e5, queen e7, another queen cannot escape, bishop d6, queen d8, bishop c7. I doubt the game would have ended like this, if white had played knight ba5, but still, it's just a curious line to show an entrapment of the queen at its starting position. But g4 is not very good because of Gajewski's reply d4, very strong reply. And what is curious is that Gukesh repeated this very sharp line g4 3 years after this game, but again at a faster time control in a blitz game against Yesipenko in BIL 2022. And curiously enough, Yesipenko did not react with the best move d4, but rather played the move knight c6. But after d4, black is actually better, but the game still, it remains and is very sharp. e4, cd4, knight d4, knight takes g4. Possible move, even though stronger, was to go e5, and then the idea is to attack the knight and to take on g4 with the bishop, preventing castling and keeping the white king in the center. But knight g4 is still okay. Rook g1. But now black had to play already in an exact way, because the way he played, the tables quickly turned and suddenly white was better. Nevertheless, when I'm saying somebody was better, this is from let's say on a higher perspective, let's say objective evaluation of the position. But as you will see, the position is so complicated and will be very complicated, so who actually is better matters very little. What matters is the move and the initiative, and who is doing the attacking. So the best move here for black was the move bishop c5, attacking that knight on d4 and also targeting this pawn on f2 if the knight moves. So white should take on g4, bishop d4, and now white should take on d4, rook takes d4, and after queen takes d4, knight e4, attacking the queen. Queen goes back to d8 and c5, intending to land the knight on d6, and with ideas like, let's say, long castle, bishop d3, targeting h7, and after rook g1, g7 would be attacked. White has compensation for the exchange. So this would have been best play objectively, yeah? But in the game, black played the move f5, defending the knight, but now after knight f3, after h3, white wants to get rid of the knight, because if the knight just escapes, white castles long and has a great position, because his pieces are very nicely directed against black's kingside. But this was not Gajewski's idea. He actually went knight f2, a very good move, trying to stir up trouble. Even though, obviously, as I said, objectively white being better means that white can refute this sacrifice. Now, the idea of the move is if king f2, queen h4, it's a check, and an attack on the knight on d4, so this is great for black. So Gukesh plays the very good move knight f3, removing the knight from the exposed square and controlling the h4 square. Now e5. So very inspired play by Gajewski. e5 intending e4. c5. You see, both players are very, very creative in this game, sacrificing material left and right. The cold engine says that simply going knight d5 and intending to take the knight, perhaps, yeah. And if the knight moves knight e4, then simply castle, and white is doing great. But c5 is a very interesting move because it allows for the development of the bishop with tempo on c4. Bishop takes c5. Yeah? At the same time, with the bishop on c5, the bishop on c5 is more vulnerable to attacks by the queen when the knight from c3 moves. Now knight g5. Yeah? Again, introducing these ideas of bishop c4 check, and if king h8, knight f7, and winning the queen on d8. The engine claims that best was to go knight a4. So attacking the bishop, yeah, and possibly intending queen c4. And now against the best move would have been knight d3 check, queen takes d3, queen takes d3, bishop d3, take on g1, knight g1. And according to the engine, this is somewhat better for white, as it judges that 2 pieces are worth somewhat more than the rook and 2 pawns that black has. But still, the game is much more interesting. Knight g5, bishop e6, yeah? And now white plays the natural move, knight takes e6, after which the tables turn again, and black is winning for the second time in the game. According to the engine, again, the best move was knight a4, and now I'm pretty sure nobody ever would guess black's best move in this position where everything is hanging. So the bishop is hanging on c5, there are threats like taking on e6, bishop c4, and so forth. And in spite of all this happening, the best move for black is the move knight h3. Now this is just simply mind-boggling. Everything is hanging, but black is just introducing another piece that is hanging, which can be taken by in two ways, by the knight or the bishop, and everything else remains to hang, but this is the best move. Yeah. Now the knight on h3 can't really be taken with the knight, because that allows for queen h4 check, yeah, and after king d1, bishop takes g1, and if the knight g1, then queen f2, for example, and black is winning. So another crazy line is take on e6, queen h4 check, king d1, bishop g1, take on f5, knight f2 check, king c2, knight c6, and after bishop c4 it's a complete mess. Yeah, but just you can't tell what's going on here. Everything is hanging. Whereas taking the knight on c5 after knight g5 was another very messy variation. Long castle, finally getting the king to safety, and after bishop f7, obviously the best move is d4. Yeah, and just opening the d file and still allowing for all sorts of craziness to ensue. So according to the engine, this was best. Yeah, but I wonder who would be the human being to come up with all these things, especially in a rapid game. But I'm pretty sure in classical is not possible either. Therefore, it's not surprising that Gukesh made the natural move, taking on e6, because it eliminates the light squared bishop and hopes to use his own light squared bishop on the light squares with ideas like bishop c4. So rook takes e6, bishop c4, that's the idea, yeah, pinning the rook. But now a very good move, king h8 by black. Now the idea of the move is that after bishop e6, the bishop no longer controls the d3 square, so black can go knight d3 check, and after king d1 take on b2 with check, and after queen b2 take on g1 with a winning position. Black has the safer king, he's up in material, and easily winning position. So Gukesh obviously understood this, and he played a great move, which throws more wood, oil, gasoline all together into the fire, d4. Crazy stuff, yeah? So the pawn can be taken in 3 ways. One is with check e4, and everything is possible, yeah? So Gajewski plays correctly queen takes d4, and after knight e2, attacking the queen, yeah, goes to h4, threatening a discovered check with the knight. So white took on e6, and now it is black's turn to start going wrong. For example, here the all-knowing engine tells us that the winning move was the move knight c6. And if we look from some, let's say, philosophical perspective, you could say, yeah, of course it makes sense, because it just develops another piece, the last piece, and allows for the rook to come back into the game. But if you look at it, black is a rook down, and the bishop on c5 doesn't really hang because there is knight d3 check and the queen will be lost. But the most important thing is that the white king is in danger, it cannot hide, and black is indeed winning. Still, Gajewski gave the natural check knight d3, and after king d2, queen h6 check, he sacrificed the knight on d3, queen d3, and now came the final moment when black could have won the game. And the winning move was the move knight a6. So it defends the bishop, lets the rook back to be able to join the game with rook d8 and introduces the check on b4 attack with a fork. And the winning line is again very spectacular, and I will just show it to you. a3 stops the knight b4 check. Now queen e3. Gajewski should have played this one move later. He played it in the game, which is in fact the losing move, and the tables were turned one more time in this amazing game. So king c4, and now another incredible move for black, bishop b4. Great stuff, yeah? Just getting the bishop out of the c file and allowing for either rook c8 or, as you shall see after a b4, b5. Amazing stuff, yeah? The king is really doomed now. So after king takes b5, queen b6 check, the king goes back to c4 because king a4, queen b4 would be mate. And now queen c7 check, and after king d3, the knight takes on b4 and black wins the queen. It's still not the end of the story, because king e3, knight c2, king f2, knight a1, bishop a1. You could argue, okay, white has 3 pieces for the queen, yeah, even though there are pawns for black, but the problem is that queen b6 is the final touch. Check, and black wins the bishop on e6, and then the material advantage is decisive. So mind-boggling line, incredible, crazy stuff, but a real beauty, yeah, to see this, even in analysis, yeah. But Gajewski made the natural check on e3 one move early, and now after king c4, white is winning. And now, by now, I'm pretty sure you understand why I call this the wildest game Gukesh has played, because this king walks, all over the board, and then actually winning when your king is walking around on a board full of pieces and being attacked is really something you don't get to see every day. Knight c6 now for Gajewski, and rook g3, an important move, attacking the queen. So the point is that black basically runs out of pieces and resources to attack. So he started giving checks, forcing the king to do some more walking, but they do run out. So knight a5 check, king b5. Look at this king, yeah? Great stuff. On b5 with all these pieces on the board, but it's safe. a6, take the knight on a5, b6, king a4, b5, king a5. And that's it. Black can give 2 more checks. Bishop b6, king b4, a5, king b5, but that's pretty much about it. The checks have run out, and the problem is that the queen is hanging. Yeah, and the queen cannot go to d4, cannot go to c5, cannot give a check, and white remains just a lot material up. In the game, after king a5, black played queen f2, but after knight d4, it's a very nice move, for trying to force an exchange of queens and also attacking this bishop on c5, also attacking the pawn on f5 if necessary. And again, black runs out of material and he resigned. Woof, yeah, this was an extraordinary game. 13-year-old kid, I guess, even though a strong grandmaster by that time, beating a very seasoned and experienced, very strong grandmaster in a rapid game in this manner, which requires not only fantastic calculation, because as we saw, both players committed mistakes. It was impossible to calculate everything, but also strong nerves. Because to play a game like this, especially at fast time controls, you need very strong nerves. Not to crack and to keep on looking for chances. And both players came up with fantastic moves. It just happened that, white was the more resourceful one. And yeah, perhaps a bit of fate included in this game when, the future challenger beat his future coach. Well, I hope you enjoy this analysis of this great game by Gukesh. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's the wildest he has ever played. And, I hope it also gave you the pleasure of going over not only the game, but also the lines that remained hidden. And, at least it did for me. It was very, very pleasant to analyze and discover all these fantastic variations, king walk sacrifices that happened in the game, but also remained in the variations. So thanks for watching this video, and I invite you to continue watching the next one, where we continue our story of Gukesh. See you there.